All right, we're ready to go here on Wednesday night. My voice is a little scratchy. I apologize for that. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I hope you can hear me loud and clear, as loud as you want to at least. I'll try and adjust the levels so we don't blow you up completely. But it's a Panther-Lair Show on a Wednesday night, April 27th, 2022. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com. Jumping in here for another hour of Pitt sports talk, or an hour or so. I don't know. It's going to kind of depend on how long my voice holds out. I don't know why it's been so scratchy lately. Just the past few days. That's kind of been what's going on for whatever reason. Maybe my voice is finally cracking. So if you thought my voice was too high, if you thought it was time for me to finally achieve manhood, well, here I am. My voice is about to drop, and soon I'll be talking like this, I suspect. It'll be nice and smooth and low. You'll be able to hear it that way. We'll see what happens with that. So, we'll talk for a while here. Kind of wish I could take calls or something and let someone else do a little talking for a bit, but I'm going to try not to strain my voice too much. Try not to clear my throat on the air too much, and we'll talk a little Pitt sports. How about lacrosse? I mean, I know you didn't tune into this podcast expecting to hear about lacrosse or think about lacrosse or talk about lacrosse, but how about Pitt's women's lacrosse team? They win today 13-10 over Louisville in the opening round of the ACC tournament to improve their overall record to 9-9. And they are, as you probably are familiar, as you're probably aware, whether you follow them closely or not, you probably know this, in their first year as a program. First year Pitt has ever had a women's lacrosse team. And they win their opening round game of the ACC tournament. They beat Louisville. And actually, a few weeks ago, the day of the spring game, they also played Louisville and got their first win ever in an ACC game. They only won one game in the ACC in the regular season. Louisville was the only one. They had a chance against Virginia Tech. That game was, they lost 12-11 in double overtime. That was one they probably, I know they'd like to have back. But they got the win finally against Louisville. And to be honest, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the world's foremost expert on women's lacrosse or any lacrosse, men, women, college, pro, whatever it is, high school. But I know enough to tell you that a program in its first year winning any ACC games, beating any ACC opponents is notable. Louisville's not a great team, but it's still a good win for Pitt. Because they were, I mean, you look at the Murderers Row, they went down. They faced number 2 North Carolina. They took on number 7 Duke, which was a game they almost won, actually. A game in Durham. That was their third ACC game. They played Duke in Durham, lost 15-14, almost had that one. They played against Virginia, who's number 14, Boston College, who's number 2, Syracuse, who's number 4, Notre Dame, who's number 18. And Louisville is the number 9 seed right now in the ACC tournament, and Pitt beats them. And so, whether you know anything about lacrosse or not, I don't know much. I'm going to be honest. This is my first year really kind of following it. I'm finding out that you win an ACC game, you did pretty good in your first year as a program. Not just your first year joining the conference, but your first year in the history of the program. First year in the program existence. It's pretty good you get a win like that. And then they go out and do it again. And win a game in the ACC tournament, obviously for the first time in program history. And so that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool for them. They'll take on North Carolina, the number 1 overall seed in the ACC tournament on Friday. But big props to Pitt Lacrosse and the progress they've made in their first year. I don't know what your reaction was when Pitt announced they were forming a lacrosse program. I kind of thought, why? How much success are you going to have with lacrosse in playing in the Northeast, playing in the ACC? But they're making the best of it and having a really successful first season. And I think they have had a successful first season. They went 9-9. I think there were probably 2 games they would like to have back, Virginia Tech and Canisius. But credit to Pitt and that program, that coaching staff and those players for pulling off 2 big wins against ACC opponents. North Carolina is going to be a huge challenge on Friday. It's tough. This conference is a gauntlet. But they've already accomplished enough to say this first season was pretty successful. And it's exciting to think about where that program's headed in the future. So, big props there. I know that's not where you probably expected the show to start. I don't know where the show was going to start, but it was still fresh in my mind because that game was played today. But, big props to Pitt Women's Lacrosse for going out and getting it done in the ACC tournament. So, props to them. Let's see what you guys are talking about, though, tonight on the Panther-Lair Show. Scroll down through some questions. John Christofich says Pitt should play Penn State every year regardless of what teams Pitt has on their schedule. Sure. I'd like to see Pitt play Penn State every year. I don't think Pitt needs to load up a gauntlet schedule just to get Penn State on the schedule. I don't think Pitt is the one saying no to scheduling Penn State. But the reality is, if they already have a Power 5 opponent scheduled, if they have a series with a Power 5 opponent set up, they don't need to add Penn State to it. I like the Penn State series as much as anyone, but there was no need to have Penn State and Oklahoma State both in the same year, in 2016 and 2017. They went 1-3 in those games. Those were 3 losses, 2 of which they didn't need to have in those 2 seasons. It was just unnecessary. It was unnecessary to double up like that. And I don't think they should ever play multiple Power 5 opponents in a series in the same years. If they can avoid it, they should. This year, obviously, they have West Virginia and Tennessee. You're going to have Notre Dame sprinkled in every now and then, and you can't really avoid that. And that's okay. Notre Dame is sort of the exception. I understand wanting to play Penn State, but I don't think it's, like I say, I don't think Pitt is the one saying no to that series. But to be honest, if Penn State, the only availability they have is a year or a series of years where Pitt has another Power 5 opponent scheduled, I don't see any reason for Pitt to play those games. It'd be fun. It'd be great. Don't do it. It's not necessary. Josh Newark says, have you played the Is Kenny Pickett's Hands Bigger or Smaller game yet? I have not played that. I saw someone talking about it online, but I haven't actually looked into it to see what it is. And to be quite honest, I'm really getting tired of all the pre-draft coverage. I'm getting tired of all the mock drafts. I'm getting tired of all the insider reports and this guy's climbing draft boards or this guy's falling draft boards. It's such nonsense. It's such a nothing that I'm annoyed even hearing about it or thinking about it. I'm tired of all of it. And not just regarding Kenny Pickett, but regarding everything. This guy's moving up boards. This guy's moving down boards. They're not moving anywhere. You're making it up. These draft experts are imagining things. It's ridiculous. And I'm just tired of all of it. I can't wait until tomorrow night. I can't wait until Thursday night. We can get the draft going. Kenny Pickett's draft position can be decided, and we don't have to think about it or talk about it anymore. So, no, I haven't played that game. Maybe I'll play it after tomorrow night. We'll see what happens. Brock Madonic says, where do you want Pickett to get drafted tomorrow? On the other hand, what team do you think Pickett lands with tomorrow? Lastly, Kenny Wosley to Pitt. Kenny Wosley is a recruit, visited with Jasir Whittington, who ended up committing to Pitt. I think they got a really good chance with him. We'll see what happens there. Where do I want Pickett to get drafted, and who do I think he'll end up with? I don't know. I go back and forth about what would make the most sense. I mean, obviously, I would like Kenny Pickett to get drafted really high so we can get the biggest guaranteed money right off the bat. It's get the most money up front. Beyond that, I've kind of felt like the Panthers make sense for him for a while, so I'm just going to kind of stick with that. The Panthers are high on this guy. The Panthers are higher on that guy. Nobody knows who the Panthers are high on. I don't buy any of that. I think it's nonsense. I think, NFL GMs and scouts are not telling anyone what they really think. I don't think they have any. There's no reason for them to tell anyone what they really think. They don't see any upside in telling anyone what they really think. They're going to keep their opinions to themselves. And there's no reason that they would let that kind of information out. And so I don't buy any of that stuff. I just think it makes sense. The Panthers could use a quarterback. Kenny appears to be the most ready to play out of all the quarterbacks in the draft. And so I think they'll take him. For better or for worse. And we'll see how it works out. But that's if I had to bet, and maybe we'll do a poll on Twitter tomorrow. That would be my guess. That he'll end up going to Carolina. We'll see. Brock McDonald says, any word on how the visit with the Twins and any update on who the basketball team is targeting? So the Twins, the Diaz-Graham twins at IMG Academy, Spanish kids, Jorge and Guillermo, a couple of big centers. Guillermo, I think, is more of a natural 5. Jorge could play the 4, be a shooting forward, and potentially play center as well. They're both like 6'11", 7 foot, something like that. It sounds like their visit went well. I'm not really sure where things stand beyond that. We haven't really gotten a lot of feedback from those guys, but that's kind of the latest we heard is that the visit went well. And updates on who the basketball team is targeting. I mean, they have the transfer from Rice visited Monday to Wednesday. They've got a Cook coming in this weekend. They just offered a couple new guys in the class of 2022. I mean, the targets are out there, Brock. I mean, there are guys out there that they're going after. It's just a question of who they're going to land. And that's not said as a negative, like, just who are they actually going to get? It's just, you just kind of have to wait and see who they're going to end up with and how they fit into the roster. They've added pieces so far. You know what I mean? They've added, obviously Blake Hinson, Fede Federico, and Nelly Cummings. Who else are they going to add? What other pieces are going to come in here? Probably another center, another guard, another forward. All the positions. They got 5 spots left, so they can add another starting lineup, I guess, if they want. Josh Newark says, does Lucas Krull get drafted? I don't have an answer to that. I don't know if he gets drafted or not. I think he's got a lot of the measurables. He's obviously got the size. I think he can run really well. His tape has upside and downside. You know what I mean? It has highlights and lowlights on Lucas Krull's film. I haven't seen a lot about him having workouts with teams or going to visit teams. I'm not sure where he's been on that. I mean, I think I could see a team taking a chance on him. I could also see teams mostly wanting to wait and get him as an undrafted free agent. So I don't know. I guess if I had to put money down, I would say probably not. But I wouldn't be surprised, though. Because, like I say, I think he's got a lot of the measurables. I think he looks great coming off the bus. And I think there are enough plays you can put on tape that you say, wow, this guy can do it. So, we'll see. Anthony Tennyson, similar question, says, how many Pitt guys do you think will get drafted? And, obviously Pickett. Obviously Damari Mathis. I think those are the two sure things. I think Lucas Krull has a chance. I think Johnny Patrician has a chance. I don't know if Cal Adamitis will get drafted as a long snapper. I don't know if Kirk Christodoulou will get drafted as a punter. They'll have a shot, and they'll definitely sign as undrafted free agents. Those two plus Krull, I think, will certainly sign, as undrafted free agents if they slide out of the draft. I do think Johnny Patrician will get drafted. Phil Campbell will have a chance, but I'm not sure. But those would be the main guys. I think, Pickett and Mathis for sure. And then, unless I'm forgetting anybody, I don't know if there's any surefire locks beyond that. But those would be the guys that come to mind first. Royce Beacom says, did several in-the-know people misread which way Michie Johnson was committing to? Shows that it is almost impossible to read a player's mind, regardless of his statements after the visit discussions with the staff. So Michie Johnson, the Ohio State guard who visited Pitt for a day last week, ended up committing to South Carolina. Did in-the-know people misread the situation? Maybe. I think you can only go on the information you're getting. You can only go on what sources give you or what indications you're picking up. And so, was it misread? I don't know. I think situations can also change. Here's the tricky thing. A guy visits a school, it goes really well, the staff and people around the staff feel good about the school's chances, that leaks out through sources, and you form the opinion, okay, this school is going to get this kid. This school's in great shape with this kid. Or this player, this transfer, recruit, whatever it is. But then that kid, or that player, that transfer, visits another school, and maybe has a different reaction and realizes, wait, no, this is the spot I want to be in. This is the school I want to go to. And so that information you had previously, which was accurate at the time, maybe is no longer accurate or maybe no longer reflects the situation as well. So it's, I think it's one of those cases where, yeah, I think Pitt was in really good shape for Michie Johnson. I think South Carolina, I don't want to say made him an offer he can't refuse because that probably has some kind of connotation in college basketball, but I think South Carolina was more appealing for him. So, was the information inaccurate? I don't think so. Did people misread the situation? I don't think so. I think just the situation changed. The information changed. So I think that happens. General So's Chicken asks, why doesn't Pitt ever try to get Ohio State on the schedule? Win or lose, I feel like that's a win to have on the schedule. That's an interesting one. I don't know. Heather Lyke has a background at Ohio State, so, having worked there for a bit, I'm not sure. We see Pitt at Wisconsin, Tennessee, West Virginia. Before that, Oklahoma State, Penn State, obviously. Not sure why you never see much with Ohio State since, the 1990s when they had those brutal games. Ohio State recruits Western Pennsylvania, so you would think there would be appeal for Ohio State. It's not like there wouldn't be value for Ohio State to play games here. And certainly it's a high-profile name opponent for Pitt to play. I'm not really sure. That would be one that, that's pretty much the closest school that we haven't seen Pitt engage with, in a non-conference series. We haven't seen anything with Maryland. They're pretty close. But, Ohio State's probably about as close as anyone that I can think of off the top of my head is of a Power 5 opponent who we haven't seen Pitt engage in a non-conference series with. So, I'm not really sure about that one. That's an interesting question. But, give me the West Virginia games. I think West Virginia is the move, and I think it's been the move, and they added more games to it. So, keep that series rolling. RJCman38 is a super chatter. You can be a super chatter. Click that $sign down at the bottom. Throw a couple bucks, support the podcast. We appreciate that for sure. And we'll always get your comments and questions if you do that. He says, national exposure is getting much stronger. What recruiting ranking should Pitt expect as a result? Rivals must have some data, so asking you. What recruiting ranking should Pitt expect? So we've talked about this, about where this recruiting class should be, this class of 2023. And I think top 25 absolutely should be the target. I think you should push into the top 20, possibly. It's tough to crack the top 15 if you don't get, like, a couple 5 stars or close to half your class is 4 stars. And I don't really see Pitt getting a 5-star or having close to half their class 4 stars. So I don't think they'll crack the top 15. But I think top 25 absolutely should be the goal with an eye toward cracking into the top 20. That should be where they try to go. I don't know. I don't know if they'll get there. We'll see. Sometimes it depends on how some of these guys are rated. Should Jordan Addison have been a 4-star? Should Damari Mathis have been a 4-star? Should Kenny Pickett have been a 4-star? These guys were all 3-star recruits. Should Izzy Abanikanda have been a 4-star? I guess it gets offset sometimes by guys like AJ Davis who were 4-stars. But sometimes it'll come down to that, how guys end up getting ranked. But for Pitt, I think absolutely they should be in the top 25 in the recruiting rankings. Longo Calrissian is a super chatter, and we appreciate that. Says the defense was good at keeping points off the board after the half last season. In your mind, what can they do to be more effective early in games? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know because I guess they prepare. Excuse me. They prepare based on what they see on film, right? And so the preparation is based on the film, based on what teams have done in the past. And they come out, and oftentimes teams will be doing things differently. Maybe Pitt's defense is easy to pick up on, easy to prepare for, easy to have a read on early on in a game. Game prep for Pitt's defense based on what they've done in the past. Maybe it's easier than other defenses, because it's sort of basic, kind of simple almost. But then by the time you get to halftime, the defensive staff has a read on what the offense is doing, and they're able to make adjustments and improve. I think you're right. I think they were good at keeping points off the board in the second half last season, which flies in the face of the notion that Pat Narduzzi's defenses never make adjustments. I think they did make adjustments, and I think they did well. Certainly the ACC championship game is the most striking example of good, a good adjustment that was made, but I don't know what you do. I think with this defense, it's got to be a matter of sort of feeling it out in the first half and trying to not give up too much until you can get to a point where you can make the adjustments at halftime and play much better and have much more success, which I think you're right. I think they mostly did last season, and that's a credit to the defensive staff. Maybe they just need to be a little bit more flexible or adjustable in the first half as well to cut down on some of that. Some of these things happened in real bunches. Even like the Miami game. Almost all the damage happened in that first quarter, and it was off like 3 missed tackles. It wasn't like Tyler Van Dyke lit them up start to finish. It was like 3 missed tackles in the first quarter, gave up a bunch of touchdowns, and that was really the difference in the game. And there was a play here, a play there. I think Kenny Pickett had a bad interception. Certainly the non-safety call, and not just the non-safety call. I think we talked about this that day, and I've talked about it since then. Okay, maybe it should have been a safety. It wasn't. Even if it wasn't, you were still at like 2nd and 11 from the 1. And they gave up, I think, a first down or a 9 or 10 yard completion. Right? That game got away from them with the big first quarter, and then they still had an opportunity to make a stop there and give the team a chance to win. So, going off on a tangent about some of the games that maybe got away in the first half. Even like Duke had success in the first half. The first quarter, I guess really it was. I feel like, obviously Wake Forest had a big first quarter against Pitt. Somebody else, maybe Virginia Tech had a little bit of success in the first quarter. Georgia Tech maybe. There have been teams that have been able to do some things early, but then Pitt's defense has adjusted and kind of shut them down. So what can they do better early? I don't know. Play a little looser and be able to adjust faster, I guess. That's about as best I can give you. Let's see. Reedworth says, what player are you most excited to see next year on the offense and defense? So I guess we'll skip the obvious, right? Not Jordan Addison, not Haba Baldonado or Servassier Dennis. I'm excited to see Kanate Mumfield. I think he's going to be really good. I'm really excited about what he's going to bring to the offense at wide receiver. He would probably be my pick aside from the quarterback. I think we're all excited to see or interested to see Keaton Slovis and what he can do. But if we're going to pick a guy who's maybe not as obvious as the quarterback or the Biletnikoff Award winner, I'd pick Konate Mumfield. On defense, I mean, Bengali Kamara and Solomon DeShields, I've been talking those guys up all through spring camp. The coaches were talking them up all through spring camp. Kamara ends up being the most improved player on defense through the spring. The Ed Conway Award winner. I'll take those two guys. I think they're going to be studs. I think they're going to play at a really high level. I think they're going to make big plays. I think they're going to make impact plays this season. I was surprised. I was looking at the stats earlier. Let me see if I can find it. If I have it handy without having to waste too much time looking for it. Interceptions for Pitt's linebackers last year. Servassier Dennis had 1, and it was a big one. John Patrician had 3 interceptions. Phil Campbell had an interception, and Cam Bright had an interception. I mean, that's a lot of interceptions. How many did I just list there? 6? 6 interceptions for the linebackers last season? I mean, that's a lot of interceptions for the linebackers. I would like to see Solomon DeShields get his hand on a ball. Because I think he can make a play, not just make the play of the turnover, but make a play with the ball in his hands. I mean, this is a guy who could have played receiver at the Power 5 level, was good enough as a receiver, good enough playmaker, good enough athlete, good enough speed to play receiver in college. He could have. And he ended up deciding he wanted to stick with linebacker. Let's see him pick a pass off or two. I remember like Greg Williams. Do you remember Greg Williams? Mid to late 2000s, outside linebacker for Pitt. I feel like he had a few interceptions and made some things happen with it. I think Solomon DeShields could do things with the ball in his hands. So I might pick him. He would be a guy I would definitely keep an eye on. And Bengali Kamara. I think Kamara is going to make a lot of impact plays. I think he's going to get a lot of sacks this year. I think he's going to be a guy that's exciting to watch no matter what's going on. You're going to watch number 11 on defense because I think he's going to make a lot of plays. Mad Dog XNE DNDND, okay, says, do you think there's a chance we land Hakeem Williams because we're in the running? Yeah, I do think Pitt's got a real shot at Hakeem Williams, number 4-star wide receiver prospect, number 5 wide receiver in the country, number 36 overall recruit in the country. Took an unofficial visit to Pitt this spring, so that means he paid to fly himself up here, paid for a hotel, paid for travel, for food, and all those things. And he's already announced he's coming back for an official visit. This is big time. In February, Hakeem Williams announced a top 8, and Pitt wasn't in it. A couple days later, that was like a day or two after Pitt hired Tyquan Underwood. Since Underwood has been at Pitt, he has gotten Williams interested in Pitt. Interested enough to take an unofficial visit, and now an official visit. I don't know if Pitt's going to land Hakeem Williams. He's a really good prospect. He's got offers from across the country, but they've definitely put themselves in good shape for it. They put themselves in position to have a chance to get Williams. So, your question is, do I think there's a chance they get Williams? Yes, I think there's a chance. I can't call him the favorite. It's still an uphill battle. It's going to be a real challenge, but it's a huge credit to Tyquan Underwood that Pitt is even in this position. So, good on him, and they're going to keep battling. Noah Frederick says, because I'm the Panther-Lair resident swim dive dude, I figured I would mention the recent hiring of Chase Kreitler, Cal Berkeley assistant who has a couple national championship rings. Yeah, I actually got a chance to meet Chase Kreitler today, the new swimming coach who was hired by Pitt. He was introduced today. They had a little press conference for him, and I actually had a chance to meet him at the Peterson Event Center today during the press conference. Nice guy, young guy, had some success as a swimmer. He wasn't the most accomplished swimmer, but he got into coaching and has had a lot of success as a coach. He's been in a bunch of different places. I think Texas, LSU, Cal most recently, where they won a national championship. They finished in number 1 at the NCAA championships in the men's, and I think number 8 in the women's. And he's coming in to help revitalize Pitt's swimming program. Pitt swimming has not been a very dominant program. Just kind of looking at it, the ACC has been really good. Pitt has not. Pitt has not really been competitive in the ACC in swimming. So Chase Kreitler is coming in to change that, or at least attempt to. And the interesting thing I would say about Chase Kreitler, since you brought him up, Noah, and this actually relates to the Pitt Athletic Department overall under Heather Lyke and her leadership. She has hired 10 head coaches so far, counting Katie Kasperzak. I apologize if I mispronounced that name. She's the diving coach. So they have a swimming coach and a diving coach, even though it's one program. But she has hired 10 head coaches. Out of those 10, 7 came to Pitt as assistant coaches at prominent or successful programs. All right, like Chase Kreitler was at Cal. Mike Bell, the baseball coach, was at Florida State. But they had made like 4 College World Series appearances while he was there. Lance White was at Florida State, where they won like 25 games or more 4 years in a row. Jeff Capel obviously came from Duke and his success there. Sam Snyder, I forget where she was at, but she was a top assistant, oversaw a lot of success. Keith Gavin had been at like Oklahoma and Virginia, and obviously has local ties. Emily, I feel so bad that I don't know how you pronounce her last name. It's just terrible. But the lacrosse coach, she was at James Madison, where they had gone to like 4 straight NCAA championships and won one. That's 7 out of the 10 coaches that Heather Lyke has hired. She's had this approach of, because look, if you're Pitt, I think you have two ways you can go about hiring a new head coach at Pitt. You're probably not going to hire away the high-profile head coach from a top program. If you're hiring a new basketball coach, you're not going to be able to go get Bill Self. You're not going to be able to go get Bruce Pearl. You're not going to be able to go get Mark Few. You're not going to be able to go get Mick Cronin, a guy at UCLA. You're not going to be able to go hire Tom Izzo, right? So you have two possibilities. You have 2 options, and I think this goes for a lot of programs and a lot of sports. You can hire a top assistant from one of those programs, or you can hire a head coach from a lower level program. And Heather Lyke, almost without fail, has hired the top assistants. Whether it's Chase Kreitler, who just got hired for the swimming team, Mike Bell, Lance White, Jeff Capel, Keith Gavin. She has gone for these top assistants rather than the lower level head coach. Joni Hermanic from the softball coach was at Ohio. That would be one example where she hired the head coach from the lower level program. But for the most part, she's gone for these top assistant coaches. Now, mixed results, obviously, so far, some good, some bad, but that's been her approach, and Chase Kreitler kind of fits that mold. So it'll be interesting to see how he works out there with the swimming program. But best of luck to him, for sure. Let's see. Nick M says the best defense is getting the lead, running the ball down the demoralized throats, and sending the hounds after an opposing quarterback who's in constant throwing scenarios. Pickett was the defensive MVP too. Yeah, I think they're going to want to try to do that a little bit more this year. Keep the defense off the field as much as possible. Keep the offense on the field. Let the defense rest. Wear down the opposing defense. They did that at times last year. They had like an 11.5-minute drive at Virginia Tech. They had a really long drive against Clemson late in the game. I think they had a long drive against Duke late in the game. For a team that didn't run the ball, I was going to say a team that didn't run the ball that well, but Andre Powell kind of pointed it out that he felt like they ran the ball well. They just didn't run it very often. They didn't run it enough. So he thought they were effective, just not consistent and committed. But I think at times they were able to dial it up and pound it down the opponent's throats. You know what I mean? Grind it out, kill clock. They were able to do that at times. I think they're going to look to try to do that more often this year. Now, not necessarily to the, it's not going to be 3 yards in a cloud of dust. This is not going to be a run first offense. I think they still understand that the best player on the team is Jordan Addison. I think they still understand that that's the best way to win in the ACC is to be able to throw the ball effectively. But I think they might tend to be more along the lines of throw the ball to score points, run the ball to win games. Last year, throwing the ball to win games made sense because they had Kenny Pickett. They don't have Kenny Pickett this year. And Keaton Slovis might be really good, but it could make sense if you can run effectively to try and close games out like that. Let's see. Josh Newark says, regarding non-conference schedule, I think Rutgers and Temple should be no-brainers. It allows us to play games in areas Pitt hits hard in recruiting. Plus, in theory, it should be wins for Pitt. Yeah, they should be. They should be. I just don't think there's a lot of appeal. Like so you're right. Okay, playing Rutgers and Temple, that's going to give you a game in Jersey and a game in Philly, which is basically Jersey anyway, right? Or I guess South Jersey is basically Philly. So that helps you in some recruiting territories you're trying to hit. But at the same time, you are going to have home games against those teams, and you're not selling tickets to Rutgers to get your fans to come see Rutgers and get your fans to come see Temple. That's kind of the balancing act. Is Temple can fill the non-Power 5 spot on your non-conference schedule. That's fine. But when you're looking for that Power 5 spot, I think you have to be cognizant of not just what can help you in recruiting as far as when you play on the road, but what can help you in recruiting as far as your home games. Oklahoma State was never going to draw anybody. Nobody cares about Oklahoma State. And especially when you're bad, like they were like Pitt was in 2017, really nobody wants to come to see you play at Oklahoma State. But even if they were good, nobody would want to come to see you play Oklahoma State. That was a bad series to agree to. There was no upside to that. Tennessee, a little more interesting. Probably a little more interest. Wisconsin, probably a little more interest. They played Michigan State, in 2006, excuse me. They played Michigan State at home in 2006. Pretty good series to have. That drew some interest. Looking ahead, obviously West Virginia is going to draw interest. Cincinnati, not as much, but we'll see. But, I think you need to be thinking about not just A, who can we beat, B, who, what schools are good destinations for us to go to in terms of recruiting, but C, who's going to bring fans to the game. Not just traveling fans, but who's going to get the more casual Pitt fan out of their houses and into Heinz Field. And Rutgers isn't going to draw anybody. Nobody cares about Rutgers. Temple, okay, as your non-Power 5 non-conference game, but Rutgers is not a good Power 5 non-conference opponent for Pitt because you're not going to draw anybody to see that game. Despite the fact that it should be a win, and despite the fact that you do want to recruit in Jersey. So, that's my thought on that. Nathan Cornett says, is this the year that the ACC media picks Pitt as their preseason favorite to win the Coastal? I mean, they should. They should. Yeah, they're replacing Kenny Pickett, but they've got the Biletnikoff Award winner back. They've got all these offensive linemen back. They've got all these guys on defense back. They are the reigning conference champion. They should at least be picked to win the Coastal. At least. But Miami's got their quarterback returning. And it's Miami. And every year, the media wants the U to be back. And so my guess is Miami will be picked to win the Coastal again. And Pitt'll beat them. That's what should happen. Pitt should be the favorite. I don't think they will be. Because I'm at a point now in my life where I'll have to see it before I believe it. That Pitt is picked to win the Coastal or the ACC. Nick M says, will the Pirates win a World Series in my chinchilla's lifetime? He is 6. I don't know what the life expectancy is for a chinchilla. How long does a chinchilla live? Let me look. Chinchilla lifespan. Chinchillas live like 8 to 10 years. Well, is it short-tailed or long-tailed? If it's short-tailed, it lives 8 to 10. Long-tailed, it lives 10 years. So will the Pirates win a World Series in the next 4 years? No. No, Nick, they will not. Brock McDonagh says, are you expecting Pitt to add another transfer for football? I believe they've got 2 spots open, so sure. I think they could use another tight end. I think they could use another quarterback. These things are options. I think, so we're coming up now. It's the 27th. Anybody who wants to leave for the transfer portal and play in the fall is going to have to do it by May 1st. So you'll know in a few days whether they need another quarterback. If somebody else goes, yeah, they should go out and get one. If nobody goes, they probably don't need it as much. But they could use another tight end, though. I think they could use another tight end for sure. And maybe even another linebacker. Why not? Let's see here. RJCman38 says, with Penn State poaching Boston College's AD, if the Big Ten goes to 9 conference games, will that open up the schedule for Pitt to renew the series? I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how that would work. I mean, if the Big Ten goes to 9 conference games, it's going to be even tougher to get a series between Pitt and Penn State. I'm not sure what the Boston College AD has to do with that. I don't follow your question, so I apologize. Josh Newark says, have you touched on the wide receiver transfer yet? We haven't, actually. I do want to talk about that. Bub Means, transferring from Louisiana Tech, coming into Pitt as a wide receiver transfer. He started his career at Tennessee, transferred out of Tennessee after 1 year because he was playing defensive back. He didn't want to play defensive back. He wanted to play wide receiver. So he left Tennessee to go to Louisiana Tech, which is where he was last season. Played 1 year at Louisiana Tech, caught 22 passes. I have the stats right here. For 430 yards and 2 touchdowns, 19.6 yards per catch. He was a deep threat for Louisiana Tech. His average depth of target was 17.5 yards, which is pretty considerable. Among wide receivers in the nation with at least 20 targets, at least 20 targets, he ranked 30th in average depth of target. And that's all of FBS, all 140 teams or something like that. So 17.5 yards per target is a pretty good average depth. Jordan Addison averaged 12.4. Sky Moore averaged 10.8, but I mean he caught a lot of shorter stuff. So I think that tells you a little bit about how Louisiana Tech was using Bub Means, maybe why his catch percentage was down. He only had about 56% of his catches, caught about 56% of his targets. I think he had 39 targets, 22 receptions. Like I say, averaged close to 20 yards per catch. Almost sort of a Jester Weah type of stat line in terms of just a guy who got downfield a lot. And that's certainly something this offense could use. Another downfield threat I think every offense could use. He's a speed guy. He's athletic. He's got good playmaking ability. By his own admission, he needs to improve in sort of the details of the game and be a more complete receiver, a better route runner. He expects Taekwon Underwood to be able to help him in that regard. And overall, it looks like a good pickup for Pitt. He'll have to sit out a year unless he gets a waiver. Even though he already sat out a year transferring, he was at Tennessee as a freshman, transferred and had to sit out a year and then play this past season at Louisiana Tech. He'll need a waiver to be eligible to play this season. You would think he should be able to get it because he has already sat out a season for a transfer, but the NCAA doesn't necessarily look fondly upon 2-time transfers. So I'm not sure if he'll be fortunate enough to receive a waiver in that, on those efforts. But we'll see. We'll see what they're able to do. If not, he'll still have 2 years to play at Pitt if he chooses to be a super senior and come back in 2024. So nice addition. Auburn and Miami were after him, so I think there was some definite Power 5 interest in Bub Means coming out of the transfer portal. A little bit of a project, just because I said, like, he needs to develop a more complete game. He's really only played 1 year of college ball at receiver, and he needs to, he needs to be a more complete receiver, and he needs to, I think, just sort of settle into a place. But it's hard to argue with the pickup. It's hard to argue with the production. He looks like a really good player. General So's Chicken says the Tennessee game this year is going to be a big game. They're going to have a good team. That's a game we're all overlooking. I don't know if people are overlooking the Tennessee game. I just think that people are really looking forward to West Virginia and then really looking forward to the ACC. And Tennessee is a week after West Virginia. You know what I mean? Like 10 days after West Virginia or whatever it is. 9 days after West Virginia. So I think all the focus is going to be on West Virginia. When that game is over, the focus will immediately be on Tennessee. Because you're absolutely right. It's a huge game. And so we'll see where they open the season in the rankings. Definitely top 20. Should be top 15. Whether they're in the top 20 or the top 15, if they beat West Virginia, they're going to move up. And then they're going to have a chance to make a big jump if they beat Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to be pretty good. I agree. I think they're going to have a good team. It's going to be a challenge. It mightn't be another shootout like it was last year. If they can win that, though, there's a lot riding on that. There's potentially going to be a lot riding on that game. Because if they can win that, they're going to make a big jump in the rankings. I don't think there's any question. And that's a huge game, for sure. I don't think anybody's going to be overlooking it. I think they're just going to, right now, that West Virginia game looms so large. And the fact that it's the first game against a rival is big for Pitt. And I think that's where the focus is for a lot of fans. It's where my focus is. But we'll all have like 9 or 10 days to turn our attention to Tennessee. Let's see here. Longo Calrissian says there's a ton to like about Pitt this season, but we don't know for certain our offense hums off the bat, and they have guys that can run routes that are effective against this defense. Are you talking? I think you're talking about Tennessee. Oh, West Virginia. Yeah, so, I mean, the question of whether Pitt's offense is going to hum right off the bat, that's going to be the big one. And that's going to, I see you're having a conversation back and forth with General So's Kitchen. But, on the matter of Pitt starting the season strong, I think it is going to come down to whether that offense can hit the ground running. I think the defense will be rather strong right off the bat. I think the linebackers might take a little time, but I think the defensive line is going to be really good, and I like the secondary a lot. But it's going to be, Pitt's early season success Pitt's early season success is going to ride almost entirely on how well the offense gels from the start. Can they hit the ground running? Can Keaton Slovis play at a high level? Is Jordan Addison, can he take advantage of the weapons he has in Jordan Addison and Jared Wayne and Konate Mumfield and Jalen Barton and Jaden Bradley and Gavin Bartholomew and the running backs? I guess my optimism about this offense for the start of the season is that Keaton Slovis is the question mark. It's a big question mark at the most important position on the most important position on the team. But around him is just talent and experience all over the place. Offensive line. Those guys have started like 180 games or something like that. The receivers. Bletnikoff, award winner. Jared Wayne. Konate Mumfield. Those guys are all legit. We're not projecting anything with them. They've shown what they can do. The running backs, the same thing. So, Gavin Bartholomew, same thing. We're not guessing about who Gavin Bartholomew is. We know he was a freshman All-American. We're not guessing about who Konate Mumfield is. We know. We're not guessing about Jared Wayne. So you've got all these guys surrounding Keaton Slovis. It's almost an ideal situation for a quarterback to walk into. all he's got to do is don't screw it up. And I mean, you know, there's a little bit more to it than that. You got to make plays, you got to make the right passes and all that stuff. But like, don't make mistakes. Get the ball to your playmakers, because you've got really good playmakers out there. And so if he can do that, don't make mistakes and just get the ball to the playmakers, Pitt's offense, I think, will do well. And then as the season goes on, if he just keeps doing that, he's going to settle in more, and more of those big plays are going to come. So that's the key to hit the ground running, is that Kedon Slovis just plays smart. Don't make mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. Ryan Berry says, do you think having the West Virginia game on a Thursday night is good in that the Panthers will have more time to reset and shift their focus to Tennessee? I'm not worried about Pitt's focus. I do think it's good to have a couple extra days to prepare for Tennessee. I said this, from the start. I thought moving that game to Thursday night was good. It's your only Thursday night game. You get it out of the way right at the beginning of the season, and you're able to you get extra time to prepare for Tennessee. You get extra time to heal from what's probably going to be a pretty physical game against West Virginia. I think it's all upsides. Will Z says, I think Tennessee will be much better than their supposed ranking of 22, most likely one of Pitt's losses. I think you projected Tennessee to be one of the losses last year too, didn't you, Will Z? I think you called Tennessee and Virginia Tech. If I recall, I don't know why I remember you saying this, but before the season we talked about the most important games, the most important non-conference and the most important conference game. And I feel like you called out Tennessee and Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech was a big miss. Tennessee was a challenging game. There's no question about it. They were good. I think they were good enough to beat Pitt. And if they had, I am one of those people who believes that if they had changed quarterbacks earlier in the game, they probably would have beaten him. There were wide open receivers running all over the field, particularly in the first half. Hendon Hooker. You see, but I'm just not entirely sold on Hendon Hooker. He's better than Joe Milton, but I'm not entirely sold that he's all that great. And I think Pitt's defense will be even better and better prepared for Tennessee's offense and for Hendon Hooker this season. So I don't think Tennessee will be an easy game. I don't think Tennessee will be a pushover, but I think Pitt should still expect to win that game. Nick M says, speaking of transfers, what percentage would you put on us losing another one or two before the eligibility deadline? I think... I mean, there's probably a pretty good chance. I can't name anybody off the top of my head, but I wouldn't be surprised if another guy goes before May 1st. Percentage-wise, probably 75%. I guess. I don't know, but that's only based on just sort of feeling like everybody transfers. So I don't, that would be my guess. Josh Newark says, so are you implying that Pat Narduzzi should put mousetraps in the football complex after the West Virginia game? So, no, I'm not, but that's a great reference. You recall that Dave Wanstead hung mousetraps before one of their games against Syracuse, just to remind everybody not to fall into the trap of overlooking Syracuse. Dave Wanstead's motivational techniques and tactics were classic. They were stuff of legend. They really were. Goodness, that was, interesting time. I don't think he's hanging any mousetraps, so I haven't heard of Pat Narduzzi doing that. So, Joseph Barr says, I am disappointed if it is assumed Kedon Slovis is automatically given the job. Nick Patty is the better quarterback for this offense, but certainly can win with both. Both are winners. Patty hasn't had the opportunity. So I don't think Kedon Slovis is being automatically given the job. I really don't. I think it was an honest and open competition this spring. I think the coaches would like to carry that honest and open competition into the fall, into August, I should say. I don't think anything's being handed to anyone. I think they're being expected to earn the job. I think they're being made to earn the job and forced to earn the job. And I don't think there's anything just being given away. All right. I don't know if Nick Patty's a better quarterback for this offense or not. I think Patty is a little more mobile than Slovis, but I don't know that that's necessarily part of this offense. I don't know that that's necessarily part of what Frank Cignetti wants to do offensively, to have a mobile quarterback. So, I don't know who's the better quarterback for the offense. I think Keaton Slovis has better, what do they always say, arm talent. I think he has better arm talent than Nick Patty. Nick Patty's got that weird hitch. I think the ball comes out of Slovis's hand better. I think he's got a better deep ball, better accuracy, better touch. I think Nick Patty has shown that he can do things to help you win. Every time he's gotten an opportunity, I think he's just sort of made plays. He's got some moxie. He's a gamer, whatever sort of cliche you want to use. So I'm not ruling anything out. I think Slovis is the favorite. Slovis is who I expect to win the job, but I think it's going to be a real competition between those two guys. I really do. Will Z says, would it shock you to see a 2-quarterback system come September 1st just to mess with the Mountaineers? Yeah, it would shock me. It would. I mean, we've never really seen, so we saw Pat Narduzzi do some two quarterback stuff in 2015 with Chad Voitek and Nate Peterman the first couple games of the season before he went with Peterman full time. So we've seen that, but not really since then. And I don't expect to see it this year. I expect that one quarterback will be named the starter, and he'll be the guy, and that's who they'll go with until that guy is not up to the task anymore, or until the season ends, which is probably what will happen. So yeah, I don't see. I've heard a few people suggest that. I've had a few people say that to me. Well, maybe they'll do 2 guys. Maybe they'll bounce back and forth, do series here or series there, or something like that. I don't think so. I think the emphasis is going to be on continuity. I think the emphasis is going to be on getting one guy ready to go and getting him to carry the offense, to run the offense, to be the guy who runs the offense. I don't see him switching back and forth. I really don't. But could be wrong. Maybe they'll end up doing it. I'd be a little concerned if they did, because that might imply that neither guy really won the job outright. I think the best case scenario is one guy just clearly separates himself and makes it obvious that he is the answer. So, I don't know. See. We'll see what they end up doing. We'll see. Long time to go now. Coming up, just about 4 months for the season opener. All right. I think my voice made it this far. I don't want to push it much further. So make sure you stay tuned at Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. We'll have lots more coverage there. All day, every day, football, basketball, recruiting, everything is on Panther-Lair.com, so you should be too. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. All right, thanks everybody for coming to the live stream tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I had a lot of good time, a lot of good questions, a lot of good answers, I hope, and a lot of good interaction and communication. So I appreciate that. And thanks everybody who listens to the podcast through the week. Make sure you subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's our YouTube channel. If you want to make sure you never miss a live stream, do that. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Thanks again for tuning in. We had a lot of fun tonight, and we will talk to you again next Wednesday night at 8:30 for the Panther-Lair Show.